everyone, welcome to Transit Online. Transit is our place for middle school students where you can learn about God and grow your faith. Today's message is a standalone message and it's a very important one. It's about small groups. What is a small group? What do you do in it and why is it important? Well, let's go find out and let's talk about it afterwards. I'll see you guys after.
What's up, everyone? My name is Ashley and I am so excited to be hanging out with you today. Before we get started, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had to do something alone, but wished that you had someone with you for support? Sometimes we just need a friend or somebody close by for support. I remember the first time I was preparing to go on a mission trip, and I had wanted to go on a mission trip across the world for like 10 years. And I was nervous to do it, but it wasn't until my sister Megan was like, I'll go too. And I was like, okay, sign us up. I just needed somebody with me who was brave and who would go and explore new territories with me and have this amazing experience together. And maybe you can relate. Maybe there are some things in life that you just don't want to do on your own. Walking through a haunted house on your own? No thank you. Going into the first day of school all by yourself? Not happening. Riding a roller coaster at a theme park without a friend? Not happening. The fact is, there are just some things in life that are better done when they're done together. You know what I mean, right? There's something about having even just one other person by your side that makes you feel better in moments like those. But can we all just be honest here for a minute? For a lot of us, showing up to church is that thing. Walking into a room of other people you might not know very well, learning about God, asking questions, hoping to just try to figure it all out, and trying to be comfortable with other people who are also trying to figure it out. All of that stuff isn't easy to do on our own. In fact, most of this whole faith thing isn't easy to do by ourselves. Well, here's the good news. You don't have to. We created groups to be a place here at church for you to come in, get connected, be yourself, and find a bunch of people who can support you along the way. They're here so that none of us have to do this church or faith thing alone. But while some of us have had experience in groups, others of us haven't yet. Groups are a huge part of what we do here at church, but for a lot of us, they're also something we haven't really thought too much about before. Maybe it's because we already have our friends. We have that group of people we're really close with. We've found our fam at school, or in our neighborhood, or on our team. We don't need our church to try to force us to have more. Or maybe we wonder how we're supposed to fit in with this random group of people. We don't have much in common, so what exactly are we supposed to talk about? How are we supposed to bond? Maybe, if we're completely honest, we'd even admit that some of the people in our group actually get on our nerves. They're not the people we would choose to spend time with outside of church. So why do we have to at church? Maybe it's that we don't trust the people in our group. We see what they post on social media, or we know what they do outside of church. And because of that, it just feels like they're being fake when they're here. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we're the ones who feel judged because of our choices or mistakes. That makes group feel uncomfortable for sure. Maybe it's just a personality thing. It could be that we're shy and that makes group feel kind of scary. Or maybe your grandmother makes you do the whole church thing, so being in group really wasn't your choice. Or maybe you've been coming to church and showing up to group and honestly, you love your group and you love your leader, but you just haven't thought much about what the point of group even is. Honestly, I could go on and on about how we might feel about group. And really, there are a million things that might make us think we shouldn't even show up or make the effort. There are so many reasons we could look at groups and think, what's the point? Does this matter? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Your group has the potential to be one of the best things that ever happens to you. And a lot of that actually depends on you. You might be surprised to discover that the Bible actually has something to say about groups. Sure, churches weren't meeting back then the way we are now. There weren't big buildings or live stream youth group services or summer camps or potluck dinners on Wednesday nights. But there were a bunch of people who were dedicated to meeting together. People who believed in and followed Jesus. People who didn't want to do this whole faith thing on their own. There's a book in the Bible called Hebrews, and it was written to some of these people called, you guessed it, the Hebrews. Now, The Hebrew people knew a little something about the idea of church. They had a long history of going to the temple, a place where they could grow closer to God and connect with Him. This was the way they could grow in their faith. It was basically how they did church. But then Jesus came to earth and all of that changed. Suddenly, people didn't need to be in the temple to be close to God. When Jesus came, He created a new way for people to connect with God. In fact, Jesus became the way for people to connect with God. So instead of people having to spend time in the temple to grow in their faith, they could connect with God through Jesus anytime, anywhere. But this was all new to the Hebrew people, and because of that, they probably struggled to understand what the point of this new way of connecting with God looked like. So, the author of Hebrews wrote this to help them. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of His return is drawing near. So, here, the writer changed the way these people saw church. The way to grow in your faith has more to do with people than a specific building. Church isn't only about showing up to get closer to God. It's about showing up to get closer to each other. It's about people gathering to encourage each other, cheer each other on, and lift each other up as we grow in our faith. It's about community. And honestly, isn't that kind of what we all want? I think we all want that friend group that motivates each other toward good, one that encourages each other and loves each other and hangs out on a regular basis. We want people to listen to us when we struggle, to fight for us when we're down, to help us see different perspectives, and to care about us no matter what. The good news is, our groups can be exactly that. They can be the very thing that the writer of Hebrews was talking about here. But to get there, you and I have to be willing to do the work. See, in a world where groups can be either great or not so great, there's one thing you can control to change the way your group works. You. The person who ends up making the biggest difference in the way your group feels is you. The decisions you make within your group can make it or break it. The attitude you have going into it can make it better or make it worse. The way you and I think about, talk about, and treat the other people, it makes all the difference. So the question is, what kind of group do you want? If we're all looking to find the kind of community that the writer of Hebrews talked about, then we have to be willing to let it start with us. See, you get out of group what you put into group. Part of this whole church thing is about motivating and encouraging the people we meet with while we're here. It's about sharing our stories and our questions and our doubts so that others feel safe to do the same. It's about being honest about what's going on in our lives so that we can support and encourage each other. So, if you want to be part of a group that does all that and more, you'll get there by doing it too. Group isn't about who's the smartest, coolest, funniest, or most popular. It's about building lasting, long-term relationships that make a positive difference in our lives and in our faith. And here at church, we create the space for you to build those relationships in groups. The best part, you also get a built-in guide to be an example for how to motivate and encourage the group. That's your group leader. Let them get to know you. They're there to support you, encourage you, and love you. They can show you how to put more into your group so that you get the most out of it. Because remember, you get out of group what you put into group. If we get out of group what we put into group, then how can we make sure we're doing our part to put in the best possible effort? Well, I think it starts with 3 things. First, showing up. Commit to giving it a chance and being open to what could happen. Even if your only goal in group at first is simply to show up week after week, keep doing it. Show up at church. Show up at the same hour with the same group every week. Show up by participating in the group text. Show up when someone in your group needs you to. Show up for the people in your group by going to their plays or going to their birthday parties. Show up with an open mind and a positive attitude. Put that in week after week, and I promise you, your outlook on your group will begin to change. Second, being trustworthy. Protect your group by making sure you're respecting everyone who's there. When someone says something you disagree with, pause and think about it before responding. Don't repeat what's shared in group with people outside the group. And better yet, take time to thank the people who actually chose to share, because it's hard to share what's going on in our lives. Lead by example here. If you want your group to be a safe place where everyone feels comfortable, then do your part to make it one by being trustworthy for your group. Third, own it. You have ownership in your group. If you get out of group what you put into group, then you have to own your part. You have to be willing to make some of the things you want to happen actually happen in your group. If you want people to share more, start sharing. If you want people to feel included, then make the first step to include them. Send the text, join the conversation, welcome anyone who's new or hasn't been around for a while. Be willing to talk things out when you need to. Remember, this is your group, so own it. Put your all into making this the best group possible. Here's my hope for all of us today: that we'll commit to showing up to groups with a new perspective. That we'll look at group as a space to not only grow closer to God, but to grow closer to each other. That we'll commit to putting our best selves into our group so that we all can walk away feeling closer, stronger, and more connected. Remember, you get out of group what you put into group. So go make it awesome!
I really hope that encouraged you to join a small group. I, for one, am so blessed to be a part of an awesome small group. We learn about God together, but we also do really fun things together. They have become really good friends of mine, and it's all because we invested in being in the group. We don't all have the same interests, we're pretty different personalities, but we put work into building these friendships and finding things that unite us. We're all committed into growing our relationship with God and with each other. I'm sure you have some good ideas on how you can make your small group better too, so I encourage you to talk about it with your leader. As the scripture in Hebrews 10:24 says, "Let us think of ways to motivate one another for acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect in meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of His return is drawing near." If you're not part of a small group, send us a message and we'll get you connected. Even if you're watching this and you're not a middle schooler, we have a group for everyone. That's it for today. Thanks for joining us. Bye.